Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show with no name on this Thursday, the 12th of September. And before we do go on, I do want to acknowledge off the cuff that today is Are You OK Day. So make sure you have that conversation. If you've got a friend or someone in the family you think might need some help, that might be as simple as ask them if they're okay and then helping them get to the resources they need. Contact Lifeline. They also have a text that if you don't want to call, they do have an SMS service as well. Now, on with the show. So I'm Theonie Roussianos, as it says below, and you are?
I'm the blonde one. I'm Adaire Palmer, and I don't even know where it is because I'm on the mobile device. I'm on my mobile phone today.
Way.
All I can see is me in a little square box. So
no, you're perfect.
There we go.
There you go. So Adaire and I started the show with no name, and it evolved quicker than we could. Well, it evolved quicker than we could keep up with it, which is why the show with no name was called the show with no name. And then it kind of stuck because people were calling it the show with no name. We thought, well, we can't change it now. It is what it is. It's the show with no name, and that's what we're keeping it as. And so the concept is that we like to help people who are doing things in their communities, for their communities, and also charities, not-for-profits, or for purposes we like to call them. We like to help them raise their awareness, raise their brand, and just share things that people are doing to help others, whether it's their next door neighbour or, you know, a whole service club doing something for the greater community. And because I've actually learned a lot through the process of this show as well, and today's no different.
And
I was like, that was your segue, or sorry, so you know what I'm saying. That's your you.
Today is no different because that's right. I've actually talking about squirrel. I've got the show with no name. I'm on my phone,
and I've got about squirrels.
Before I announce or introduce our special guest for today, I would like to say that we are on mytimetv.live. We do syndicate the programs that live stream on mytimetv.live out to 50 channels of TV on demand through the Binge Network syndication program. And we are also so if you're not on mytimetv.live, you'd like to talk to us like live and have your comments seen, you would need to come over to mytimetv.live. And also, what we're about to share with you, you would probably know somebody. We're talking about dyslexia today, and you would probably know somebody who has dyslexia, or someone who has, or probably several people. And when this came up, I thought, wow, I do know actually quite a few people who have dyslexia. And so today we have got Mascia Paradiso, who is joining us to talk about her experiences with dyslexia and what she has done about it. Because like Theonie, when she finds a cause that's close to her heart, she doesn't sit around and do nothing. She actually launches into action. So Mascia is a small business owner over at Bridal Fusion by Mascia, who believes that everyone is beautiful in their own right. She's the mother and stepmother to 4 children, including 7 and 17-year-old children with dyslexia. Mascia has gone through what other parents of dyslexic children have endured: lack of support, bullying, and the never-ending flood of tears from people just not understanding. So Mascia has decided to make a difference and help raise money for Codette Reed Dyslexia Awareness. Mascia and her husband are hosting a ball called Red Masquerade Ball on 6th of October which is coming up very, very soon.
Very quick.
So I would just like to say thank you for joining us, and please, if you know of people, let them know that we're talking here with Mascia today. You will find some amazing things, I'm sure, that will help you and those people that you know who do have dyslexia, or people that you know who work with people or who have family members who are dyslexic.
And
welcome.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
And welcome, Mascia. And I just want to say thank you, Annie, for jumping in. Now, Annie has shared this broadcast to her profile. I did do a sneaky tap on the shoulder before we went live. Annie also has dyslexia, and she shared this broadcast to her profile, sharing her own story of what she went through growing up and how hard it was as well. So thanks for jumping in, Annie. Appreciate that.
Lovely to see you, darling. So Mascia, how you've got a 17-year-old and a 7-year-old. So is obviously the 17-year-old, is that your first experience with dyslexia?
Obviously, yes. So my son, he's 17 years old, and he got diagnosed around about 7-8 years old, pretty much because we didn't have the opportunity for it to be picked up quickly, which is one of the main reasons right now why I've actually decided to do this ball to create awareness. I found out just recently, and I took it for granted, silly me, took it for granted that teachers were trained to pick up dyslexia, but they're not at all. They are given, and I've spoken to a few teachers, they're given probably about half a day, if that, at school, going, hey, this is dyslexia, given a few ideas, and this is something that you're going to deal with, and that's it. So the reason why I've decided to throw the ball with Code at Red is pretty much because they want to empower teachers and get them trained up at university and not just give them 3 or 4 hours. So they're trying to get everything through government, and they started off as a bunch of volunteer mums doing their work and having dyslexic children, and just like them, myself have gone through hell and back, not just through schools, but also within your home environment as well, and the frustrations of every day. Yeah.
So Mascia, just a bit about what your understanding of dyslexia is, because I'm sure, like we're speaking about it like people would know what it is, but there may be people out there who have dyslexia that haven't actually even realised it and wonder why their life's so hard. So
exactly. So dyslexia comes in a few different forms. The ones that I have at home, and the one obviously that is very apparent to me, is the letters. They can get muddled up, like the B's and the D's, the Q's and the P's. Words come out and look different on a page. So what we can actually see is the cat sat on the mat. They may see it completely different. And normally what I found with my son, he has not only dyslexia, he has auditory processing and ADD, which is attention deficit disorder as well. So combined, all three of them came into a great, beautiful cup of soup, which meant that I had to learn different ways on how to communicate with him. So he's very much a visual-based learner. And so anything, if I had to show him, I had to show him, which is really great because I'm Italian, but I had to show him with my hands. So I show him with my hands and visualize, and instead of saying, oh, look, it's, the green dress over there, I actually had to pick up and go, this is a green dress. I can't actually even tell him all the time, go to your room, clean up your room, because he kind of sits there. And with the dyslexia and auditory processing, his mind just muddles up. So they're actually a lot smarter, I believe, because they go from one side of the brain to the other and then back again, whereas people without dyslexia just go from one to the other. So they have to work twice as hard to actually process as well. They also, they're a lot better with computers, with highlighters, so that's the way they can help them read. So if you give them just a plain block of writing and it's just black and white, it kind of all jumbles and they can't understand it, or they get lost within the translation.
We had a client at work who, I remember, this is going back about 20 or 25 years ago, any correspondence, and I know this isn't the case for everybody, but any bit of correspondence we sent out to this client had to be on, if it was on pink paper with blue font, he could read it. I found that quite just the colour of the background, and I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind it, but for some reason he could read that colour.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that sometimes they're even colourblind. That doesn't help as well. But you can also use a highlighter. If you just use a highlighter to differentiate with the lines between each line, it actually helps as well. Also a ruler, something even simple. When we find, well, I found as well, when in the beginning when we were trying to understand what was going on, I actually thought that he couldn't see. So we sent him to a behavioural optometrist. So they're a special optometrist. It's not just a normal one. And when the optometrist came back to me, he said, "I'm so sorry, but the tests are inconclusive." And I kind of looked at him and I said, "Well, can he see or not?" And I didn't understand that. And he goes, "Please don't get angry with me, but I think he might be dyslexic." And I've gone, one, I don't understand why would he be angry? It's like, you're helping me. And I said, number two, though, why dyslexia? I don't understand. And he turned around and he said, because he couldn't differentiate between the letters when you were reading out the letters on the screen. Something so simple that I took for granted every day, whereas with a dyslexic child or adult, they have to do things differently to adapt.
So it was actually picked up by an optometrist, not the teacher.
The teacher, she actually said it was great that they picked up something. They couldn't put their finger on it. But she said, look, they may be, Lachlan may be having problems looking at the board. Maybe send him to an optometrist and have a look at the optometrist. So I went to an optometrist first, and then the optometrist said, "Oh, probably best to go to a behavioural optometrist." And I kind of sat there and I went, "What's a behavioural optometrist?"
Yeah, what's the difference?
I had no idea of this stuff many years ago, and so it was a very fast learning process, and it's very much a whirlwind experience. A behavioural optometrist, obviously, I believed, picks up other little facets of what's going on. So I think they do extra tests to differentiate whether a child has dyslexia or something that can contribute, whether they can see or can't see. And then we had to go to a speech pathologist as well. That's where the auditory processing came up. So yeah, it's a big change, because by the time you start accepting what has gone on, you kind of sit back and think, what have I done wrong? How did we get to this point? Is it, where does it come from? So you don't talk about these things. It's just, your child goes to school, you have to adapt, and then you hear the teachers going, "Oh, their reading's not that good, but they're good at maths," or vice versa, or they're just talented in some way. But it's finding the way and I guess helping them over that line and understanding and trying to teach them in a way that they can understand. So if I sat and looked at my son and said to him, "Okay, just read through the paragraph and then tell me what's happened," he would just straight look at me. Even now that he's in year 11, going on to deciding what he's going to do as a career and things like that, he still can't actually do a whole composition and read it, and he'll just look at me and go, I don't understand this. And it's like, okay, step back a second, read the first line. And then it's like, okay, read the first line. And I said, what does that mean to you? And he sits there and he translates. So it's like a translation that they go through.
Yeah, so auditory processing disorder, I understand completely. My youngest also has auditory processing disorder. Adding dyslexia to the mix. Now, you mentioned earlier with the dyslexia auditory processing disorder and that ADD about it being a big cup of soup. And I just imagine it quite literally being, especially with the dyslexia. I know when I was a kid, Mum used to make alphabet soup, because it was just what I like. And I picture in their head that'd be what it is. It'd just be all the letters jumbled up and they just can't make any sense at all.
Exactly. They just pop around and do their own. That's the way that I envision it. And when I speak to Lachlan, it's like, what do you see? And he reads another word, and it's like, where's he reading this? So for him, he reads something, and then it's like with I guess even just the logo for Code It Read. If you look at it, it's Code It Red. Is it read or read? So it's lost in translation, is what it boils down to with dyslexic children and adults. They go around, like even just filling out a form, you go to the tax office and get a tax file number. You have to fill out forms, even going through the whole government departments. Everything is, tick a box and read this and tick that box and tick that box. And
The process is
with
difficult
dyslexia, it's
Yeah.
hard for me, and I don't have dyslexia. You miss a box and then you've got to start again. So just enduring that with a disability, and it is a disability, but it doesn't have to control your life. You can just enhance it and work differently. I have managed to grasp it, understand it. So now when I meet with people, I can pick up whether they have dyslexia or not, but sometimes they can adapt to me a lot quicker because I am like a visual-based competency type of trainer. So I train that way, which means everything is a visual based. So even looking at international baccalaureate schools, they are visual based schools, and they're fantastic for dyslexic children, I found as well, because they're visual based learning. So, and you found back in the day, the reason, from what I believe, it wasn't picked up often was also because there were a lot more trades, and people went to trades, and electricians and mechanics, and you went out and got an apprenticeship. Whereas now a lot more children are going to universities, and so they want to do the more academic, and everything is more computer based and things like that. So I think the whole transition within the generations has changed. So now it's become a lot more apparent, and with people that don't have dyslexia, we have to learn how to communicate with others. It's just like a managerial type, training. What is like your staff? How do you train and how do you speak to them? The way you do things. So it's a whole different way.
Yeah, and it is.
So, Mascia, I knew that was going to happen. We've been very good up to now.
For those in the world of Facebook who can't sell, so you have the pleasure of seeing all three of us. Mascia and Adaire can hear my voice, but they can't see me. They say you should be seen and not heard, but I'm Greek, so I do it the other way around.
That's not going to happen.
I can feel you moving.
So you go first, Theonie, then I'll ask my question, because it's likely that they're the same question.
Now I've got to remember no, it wasn't going to be a question. It was just a comment. It is all about the language. Sometimes changing two words can make a difference to the other person's comprehension, and that was all I was going to say. So go ahead and ask your questions. Talk over me. Hang around and read.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been great talking to you, Mascia, but then I have so much more fun talking over Theonie. No, that's not true. Well, it is, but anyway. Well, what I wanted to know, actually, just to call again, if you're watching this live or in replay, if you have any questions at all for Mascia, just connect or just reach out. Let us know if you have any questions about her experience and about what she knows about dyslexia. And also do remember that if there are people in your life or people that you know with people in their lives that would love this information, because it might just be the one thing that turns on a light bulb for a parent who's really struggling. So please help us get the word out there, because it's really important, because I can imagine that the angst that you would go through, you were saying yourself, the tears and the frustration because you just didn't know. So
exactly.
Please help us get the word out there as far and as wide as possible. Now, the question I had, Mascia, was, do you have statistics? You did mention that the times are changing, and this is being highlighted more and more with the knowledge-based approach that we're taking to to our work. So is there statistics? Do you know of any statistics, or are they
Look,
just
to be honest,
emerging now?
I think they're emerging more now.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's Code at Red, and there's Spelled Essay. So we do have these things available to us. It's just not as known. The strange thing is if we don't pick this up earlier, what happens is that these children get lost in the system. So what that
Mm.
means is at school, they're called stupid. They get bullied because you're dumb, you can't read it. Even looking at a street sign that you could miss the street, and then potentially because of that frustration. And this is not everybody, but it is known to fill up even our, they resort to crime because they can't get jobs, and then they go, they go to our prisons and things like that that affect everyone. And obviously with as well as with today just being, are you okay? No, they're not okay, because they stress. And when the stress and the anxiety, and they don't want to go to school, and they cry, and then they want to harm themselves. These are the things that I am going through every single day, because they're scared and they don't want to cry and suffer every day.
Mm.
So,
And then we're both.
when you do ask, are you okay? Look at, it's not just an idea. The are you okay is so much bigger.
Mm.
It stems from, being bullied and dyslexia, because you're
Yeah.
bullied because you can't read, or you haven't been taught, or you just don't understand. So these are the types of things, I guess, that it sits back, and it's beautiful that we actually picked today to talk about this, because you know these children aren't okay. And when you're growing up and an adult and you're dyslexic and you're trying to teach your child how to read and you can't read, no, you're not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just the children it affects, obviously, like we can see the distress in you directly. So and the children are the ones going through, and obviously they grow up and become adults. And it's, as a parent, watching your child suffering isn't easy. And you do go through that whole, I know that with the struggles complete different struggles to what you're dealing with, but the struggles that my youngest son has through school, I did go through periods where where did I go wrong? It's all my fault. What did I do? Why him? And you go through all of that process, and you do put the blame on yourself when it's nothing that you've done. It just is.
It just is.
So, Mascia, when you were talking, you're planning a gala ball. Was this the first ball that you've?
This is my first one. It came from. It's quite funny. In now thinking about hindsight, why I did it. So it came from this year. I had a bit of a dummy spit with my son's school, and we had discussions. And you go through this process, and it's great because at least they speak to you and do this and that, and you try to implement and do things and reach out to the public. But when they turned around and I said, well, is the teacher trained? And they turned around and said, well, no, not this one. And I just went, what do you mean not this one? And I sat there and I said, well, I pay money to send my child to school, whether it's a private school, public school, it's irrelevant. And I said, well, why are not all the teachers trained? And they just went, well, we have to pay for it as a school, and it's not funded by the government. That was my answer. And I sat there and I said, well, that's not good enough. So that, from my little dummy spit and having a crack at the school and doing all of that and trying to help, my kids, I then decided to get back on that wonderful thing called the internet, and tried to search, who's out there that can help. And I found Code at Red, and all the other little companies, other places like Spelled Essay and that, all working together for this foundation, and trying to get it through government to get the teachers trained up. So every teacher is trained up, and it's all come from a bunch of mums
So it's
creating this foundation.
10 years since your son received his diagnosis, and you've only found the organisation now.
Yes, I took for granted, believe it or not. The organisation is quite young. It's, if I'm not wrong, I think it's about 3 or 5 years old. So, and it was just mums getting all together and sitting down and having a chat about their children, and they're all from different states. So they all got together and decided to create this and bring it all together. And I've had the privilege of meeting and speaking to them, especially of late, when I said, look, I've picked this, and I could have picked the other massive things in cancer and everything, depression and that, but for me is very personal. And now, of course, I've recently married, and I found that my stepdaughter, I started communicating with her, and then my darling husband turned around and he goes, but do you understand? And he actually spoke louder, and I've gone, she's not deaf. And I said, what are you doing? And all of a sudden it just clicked, and I just went, hold on a second. And now, whenever I speak to my little one, it's the same way as I speak to my son. So you sit there and you translate the same way, and you speak the same way. And so now, when she's starting at school, and she's in year 1, we've picked up once again that she's not as proficient as she can be. So me being a mum, I've gone, okay, so what can I do? So I get my son and go, well, would you mind going through with the little one and reading with her? So he's actually re-going through things again, and he's teaching her at the same time. So instead of, and I'll just like, I'm kind of busy, I really can't do this. But it's not about that. It's about him blending and communicating with a younger child who has dyslexia and can work together. And it
That's beautiful.
Strengthens.
And so now neither of them feel that they're alone. There's someone else in the house who, I mean, you understand what he's going through as a mum, but until you're actually going through that side of it yourself, you never really fully understand what they feel and what they're going through. So that's amazing.
And of course, in the schoolyard, it's hard. It's hard for the kids as well, where if one child is behind in schoolwork or something, or they're not understanding. I mean, I even felt like with my son, he came the other day to me, and he looked at me and he said, it was funny. I asked my teacher for help, and he said the same thing, but he said it louder. And I just looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And I said, you're not deaf. And he goes, yes, I know that, but that's all he said. And he goes, I just looked at him and went, don't worry about it. And he gave up. And that's my biggest concern, is that they give up. So I do everything in my power and go, well, no, you need to address this. You need to, talk to him about it. You don't need to, yell. Because there's no need to. He's not deaf.
Yeah. The reason I brought up earlier, it wasn't a reflection on you. When I said earlier about how it was 10 years ago he was diagnosed and you've only just found Code at Red now, it was more that people don't know these organisations exist, and that's the purpose of this show, is to raise the awareness, because awareness is everything, and awareness can save someone's own mental state.
Exactly.
And can help everything that's happening at home and in the schoolyard and so on and so forth. So please do make sure that if you know anyone, and you might not know somebody is dyslexic, because it's one of those things you don't know if you're not told. Annie, I wouldn't have known had she have not told me, and we've got other friends as well. Had they have not told us, we wouldn't have known, because as adults they find other ways to cope, and to whether not that they're masking it, but it's not often that adults are in a room together reading together, and that's when you just don't pick that stuff up for someone like us who's not trained to pick up those little things. So please, anyone who needs to see this, make sure they see this broadcast. And thank you. Remember, if you're in Adelaide, so is it the 6th of October, the ball?
Yes, 6th of October. So you get your glam on. So dress up. You can either wear your old wedding dress, or you can wear a ball gown,
Mine won't
dressed
fit.
to the nines. You know, a lot of people have been saying that lately. So yeah, you could do whatever. It's just a night of raising money, having some fun. We've got pink diamonds. We've got DJ Eric as well. We've got Mark Lobert. He's a South Australian local
Mark
artist.
is our favourite artist. He's brilliant.
He's amazing. We love him.
Big shout out to Mark.
He'll be doing that as well.
Mark does a lot to help South Australian charities, organisations, and not just the bigger charities. He does a lot to assist the grassroots programs that are really doing their bit to get off the ground. So big shout out to you, Mark. We think you're amazing.
Go, Mark. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
So,
and then we've got a lot of things going on, and raffles and wine lucky dips. Tom Hardy from Hardy's Wineries has donated wine. Vitify as well, nice wine. So yeah, it's fantastic. We're all getting together.
I did hear you say you had pink diamonds.
Yeah. Is that the band, Pink Diamonds?
No, it's an actual.
No, it's actually a pink diamond.
Oh,
it's up for auction.
Seriously?
Yes,
I'm thinking
we've been lucky enough to have one. Yeah. No, it's a DJ.
like
the DJ's awesome, but we are getting a pink diamond up for auction. So it's a massive investment. They're actually here at the Argyle Diamonds, pink Argyle Diamonds, and they're closing a mine in Western Australia, I believe, and that's closing down. And they actually supply 90% of the world's diamonds at the moment. And that's closing down, and when that closed down, it goes straight up in pricing. So so that's going up.
It's a rare pink diamond. So, Mascia, we are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, I do want to ask you one question. Congratulations on your recent wedding, and did you design your own dress?
I wish I did, but no. At the time, I didn't have my store at the time, unfortunately. I got dragged into this love of wedding dresses shortly after, and wanted to change and once again make a difference to, help everybody out and keep everything, in reasonable pricings, and so everyone can afford their dream wedding dress or evening gown or formal gown.
Well, you can get the ticket link for the gala event is above, in the post above. So as we wind it up, just give us a little plug for your business. Whereabouts are you?
Oh, thank you. It's Bridal Fusion by Mascia. We do evening wear, formal wear, accessories, men's bespoke suits and accessories. And we're on 10B, Unley Road, Unley, so very close to Green Hill Road, just opposite F45 gym.
Nice.
So if you don't fit in the dress you really want, just pop over the road and come back.
Yeah, just train a little and, or we use shapewear. We'll just squeeze you in it.
Even better. I like that idea better.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So join us the same time, same place next week for the show with no name. Bye for now. Have an amazing weekend.
Bye.